Hi, this is Tony Wade, the Compassionate Investor, and today we're at one of the properties that I'm looking at to purchase over the next few weeks so that we can continue moving forward with our model in transitional housing. And I've got Brian Claridge here with me, who is with AB Acquisition.
Acquisitions, correct, yes.
And he does a lot of construction, so he had done some work on this property prior to, so of course we're going to reach out to him to sort of get his input on the property and see what we should do going forward. So,
sure.
Brian, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So this is the property you did the work on. Tell us first what you did when you came in and did some work.
So yeah, so buildings like this, 4-family flats, they usually have a center support wall, 2 exterior support walls. The time I came back a couple years ago, the center supports were sagging and the floors were sagging. So we added some supports in the basement, which you and I got a chance to look at, and they're still holding very well, so that's good. Your concerns on the outside is a lot of the brickwork, which happens in a lot of 4 families in St. Louis, where you get the water in behind the brickwork, the brick, then the ice freezes, the brick moves, those kind of things. So those were kind of your concerns. Yeah. Overall, building is solid as it sits, even though it's kind of sagged. But
that's good to know.
We're all getting older, so things aren't exactly where they used to be, right?
Exactly.
So that's where we're at. I know we talked about changing a 4-family to a 2-family. I don't see any issues with that because no support walls were taken out, so that's good. You want to make sure you don't ever take out a load-bearing wall, but yeah.
So let's pause on that, because sometimes when you're thinking about getting a building and trying to figure out what to do with it, your goal, of course, is to maximize rent. So this was a 4-family that they converted into a duplex. And I'm thinking about converting it back for that reason, because in this one, I think we had 4 bedrooms on both sides.
Yes, you had quite a few bedrooms, yeah.
Now we could actually make it 5, because there's really 4 upstairs and 1 downstairs. There's actually 5.
Correct.
So you have 5 bedrooms.
Yes.
And when you're thinking about that, you have to think about what neighborhood am I in? So if the neighborhood would allow for you to have what you want to do in this area. 2, if it was going to bring in the rents that you needed to bring in. And then 3, are there any other permits you need to get? And if we were to keep it as a duplex and we have more than 3 people in this unit, we are going to have to either do a plat and petition, which y'all know how I feel about boarding houses. We are not boarding houses.
Nope.
We are transitional housing. But if you do the transitional housing route, is this going to be recovery? Are we going to use it for people who are coming out of incarceration? How will this neighborhood receive it? Those are all the things that you have to consider when looking at this property. And I'll break that out in just a moment in one of our segments. So based on what you found, we could easily convert it back to
since there was no structural supports taken out, we could just add this division wall in between the 2 doors, and then you're gonna have to add your kitchen back in. Upstairs, the biggest expenses when you're talking about switching back to a 4-family is you got to make sure you know where your plumbing is. Was the plumbing terminated in the walls? How far did it go down? That's going to be your biggest expenses. If you're going to go back with like an electric stove, where does the electric cut off? All of that stuff should be in the walls.
Perfect.
We might be like, hey, we cut a hole, we tap right back in, we're set. It might be, oh, all the plumbing's been removed to the basement. So those are the things you really do want to take a look at if that's something you're considering as a legitimate path of switching it back into a 4-family. Then you're going to want to knock some holes in the walls. They're going to be ugly, but we're going to figure them out and then see what all you have to do. That's going to be your biggest expense. Cabinets are cabinets. Things like that. Countertops are countertops. There's going to be your plumbing and electrical is going to be the biggest expense. But I don't think, around $5,000, I think, for a kitchen addition, and then the wall addition's $250.
So the thing you have to think about is what we're buying this at, because the price point is a little high, and you have to balance it and make sure that you're not overspending something for the numbers that you might be able to get elsewhere. And like
myself is I usually am right in the middle on prices. There's people that are going to be more expensive than me. There's going to be people that are more inexpensive than me. The number one thing I would say, and I know you've been doing this a long time, don't get that cheapest bid, because that guy's not going to show up, it's not going to get done, and you're going to pay the middle of the road price anyway. So make sure that makes sense, because people will buy something and say, well, if this guy does my 10 kitchens, it's going to make sense. But that guy didn't show up. So now that didn't make sense. So
now one last thing I want you to sort of go over again, because as we were looking at some of the items and related to the building on the outside, there was some issues with the front and the decorative brick.
Yes,
Can
correct.
you talk about that piece and then also talk about that back piece?
Sure, yeah. So I don't know, I mean, in this particular case on the front side, you just have those decorative bricks. Usually the colored bricks are the decorative bricks. They might be green. Usually green was for like bars and taverns and stores, but like, with these decorative colored bricks, these are the outside skin bricks. So when the ice gets behind those, sometimes that can separate just by itself. And really nothing's wrong with the wall. Those bricks will come off, they'll re-brick it, and it'll be fine, inexpensive. But the issue is you can't ever really know what's there until you pull that layer off. Anyone that says they know what's behind it doesn't know. You gotta take it off, And then once you get that done, then then you'll know exactly what's there. So that's one of those ones that's just it's going to cost money to figure out what the problem is. The problem could be little, the problem could be big, but it's going to cost you something to find out what it is.
And I will say it's something that needs to be dealt with immediately, only because it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
Clearly it's going to be an issue. And prime example, I have a building I've owned for easily 12 years and I did not do anything about it.
I understand.
And now I'm paying the price.
But that's okay. So on the other side, when you're talking about the other side,
yeah, let's talk
that
about
one
the other side.
we saw has been patched. And then we saw that patch moved. Then it was patched, and then we saw that patch move. That's really where you've got active movement.
Yeah.
That patch happened, within the last couple of years. That means it's moving in half an inch at a time.
We need to deal with that immediately.
Like I was telling you, your husband's super important part. One of the big important parts is that when it starts, it exponentially speeds up. So it might move a quarter of an inch in 5 years, but then once it moves that quarter inch, it might move a half an inch in 2 years, and then it might move an inch in a year, and then it might move 2 inches in 6 months.
Next
and then boom,
you know it's falling.
That's exactly right, because you're creating a pocket to allow more water and more ice. So
yeah, and it just keeps growing from there.
Keeps going.
So I appreciate you sharing that information
Absolutely.
with us, Brian. In just a moment, we're going to be going over some more information. So we'll be back after these moments.